Hello and welcome to Kilman Church's online service. My name is Jonathan Gilbert. I am the youth pastor here at Kilman, and I will be leading us through our service today. I just want to start by sharing a story with you. About 7 or 8 years ago, a friend of mine, Callum, who you'll obviously know very well, Callum McFarlane, we both went travelling through Europe together, and we spent most of our time in a lovely little town called Rijeka, which is within Croatia. And on one of the days, we were looking for something touristy to do. And the woman who owned the hostel we stayed at suggested we walk our way to the top of the hill. At the top of the hill, there's a lovely church for us to visit. However, we weren't too sure. We see churches very often. It's part of our jobs. It's like a weekly occurrence for us, if not more. But then she said there's also an amazing pizza place. So we were forced to reconsider. We travelled along to the bottom of the hill, and then we realised the journey we were about to embark on was maybe a more arduous one than we'd first anticipated. You see, in front of us, there was a sign that said 561 steps separate us from the top of the hill. 561 steps between us and our pizza. 561 steps that we knew we were not going to enjoy. But we'd set off to do this task, and we were going to complete it. So we started our way up these steps. The first 100 came easily enough to us, perhaps due to us being hungry and wanting our lunch. However, after not too long, we were starting to waver. The stairs were becoming a little bit more difficult. And a particular low point for me was seeing an 80-year-old local rush up the stairs as if it was nothing with 6 or 7 bags of shopping. She didn't seem bothered at all about the fact that these steps were in her way. Just seemed like a daily occurrence. You know what, maybe that embarrassment kind of encouraged me to continue on, to stop waiting, but just to push my way through to the top. And you know, when I got to that final flight of stairs, a second wind hit me and I rushed up those stairs just as quickly as that lady who'd passed by us did. Perhaps it was the fresh smell of pizza in the air. Perhaps there's a hope just to get it over with. I'm not too sure, but we rushed up and we got to the top. Achievement was done. So we decided before going for our food, we would go and visit the church first, hoping to feel potentially like one of the early worshippers who would have maybe came to this church 700 years ago when it was founded. As we walked in, there was a number of things that stood out. There was some fantastic paintings. There was many candles lit. The room was furnished beautifully. But one thing that stood out to me more than anything else was Jesus still on the cross at the other side of the room. An image of Jesus upon the cross. And you know, it wasn't particularly amazing or awesome. It wasn't painted particularly well. However, it just struck a chord with me. It caused me to stop and to ponder. I sat down in one of the pews and I was struck by the notion that 700 years ago, someone who made their first journey up these steps would open the door and saw Christ within that church. Obviously, it's just an image of him, but they would be struck by the fact that Jesus is with them. And you know, after these 500 steps, after I came through the doors, seeing this image of Jesus on the cross, it was an encouragement for me, an encouragement to remind me that Jesus was with me, not just as I got there in the church, but every step along the way. And you know, after all these years, I can only remember when I look at photos, items like the pizza that I had and the toppings on top of it. I can only remember the church building when I look back at photos. However, I still remember the feeling I had when I looked across the room and saw that image of Jesus. That reminder that his very presence is with me. Hopefully, many people who have visited had a similar experience like that. You may be wondering why I'm bringing this up. Why this story? Well, today I particularly want to focus on a couple who went on a journey similar to me. They heard the good news of Jesus. They heard that he'd been risen from the grave and decided to go on a journey to another town, decided to leave Jerusalem. They had no idea how impactful this journey would be on them at the start of their journey, but after the journey, they would never view the cross of Christ the same way again. Their life would be shaken upside down. Now let us read together from Luke chapter 24, verses 13 to 35 on the road to Emmaus. Now, that same day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were talking to each other about everything that had happened. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but they were kept from recognizing him. He asked them, "What are you discussing together as you walk along?" They stood still, their faces downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, asked him, "Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days?" "What things?" he asked them. "About Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. "He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one that was going to redeem Israel. And what's more, it is the third day since this has took place. In addition, some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb early this morning, but didn't find his body. They came and told us that they had seen visions of angels who said that he was alive." Then some of our companions went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see Jesus. He said to them, "How foolish you are, and how slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory?" And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. As they approached the village to which they were going, Jesus continued on as if he was going further. But they urged him strongly, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening. The day is almost over." So he went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took the bread, gave thanks, and broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. They asked each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he talked to us on the road and opened scripture to us?" They got up and returned at once to Jerusalem. There they found the 11 and those with them assembled together and saying, "It is true, the Lord has risen and appeared to Simon." Then the two of them said all that happened on the way and how Jesus was recognized by them while he broke the bread. I love this passage of scripture. You have two followers of Jesus. They have just heard from the two Marys, Salome, Peter, and John, that Jesus has risen from the grave. Yet here they are, followers of Jesus, after hearing the good news, going in the opposite direction. They're traveling on towards Emmaus. Perhaps they don't know the gravity of the situation. Perhaps their grief of losing their friend Jesus is calling them just to leave the city. Perhaps they're just going home. In short, we don't know what's happening here. But as they're heading to Emmaus, they come across a gentleman wanting to travel with them. So, of course, they journey the road together. I wonder what this journey must have felt like. Someone who at first doesn't seem to know who Jesus is starts pulling apart scripture and putting the whole life of Jesus into context through reading through it, helping them to understand that he is the Messiah and that he had to go to the cross to die and to rise again, that he is the one the Bible has been speaking of for so long. I don't know if you've ever had a conversation like this one that starts to put the pieces into place so that you understand a big concept like that. Back when I was at Bible college, there was a number of times, strangely sitting around the dinner table, where we started talking about something we discussed in class, and then suddenly everything I was struggling to understand came together to make a beautiful message. It just needed that little bit of guidance, and that's what we have here in this situation. The followers of Jesus have decided to dedicate their life to him. However, they think that the journey with Jesus that they've been on potentially for years has come to an end. But little did they know that Jesus is by their side, helping them to see everything that had happened more clearly. And as the day goes on, they rest and invite Jesus to rest with them. Jesus then breaks bread, and suddenly their mind floods back to the Last Supper, where they last saw Jesus, where they last maybe even heard of Jesus breaking the bread and giving out to disciples. In this moment, eureka, They get it. They know Jesus is with them, but suddenly he's gone. Such a strange moment, but a beautiful one. They're journeying with Jesus for the whole day, and the way they viewed the cross was transformed from this moment. The way they viewed their faith was fully transformed, because finally they saw Jesus and what he came to do. And in this moment, they had two options of what they could do. They could stay where they were on their pre-made journey here in Emmaus, or in light of what Jesus has revealed to them, they can return to Jerusalem, rush towards where they know Jesus will be. They do the latter. They cancel their plans. They rush back to Jerusalem to see Jesus again in the pitch black as well, which would not be a fun journey. And they go to tell others what journey they've been on with Jesus that day. I think it's important for us to read this scripture today because we're all on our journey with Jesus, every one of us. We might not truly know it. We might forget it. Or we might think maybe even the journey's done, just like these two. But I think through our life, Jesus reveals more of himself to us. He can do that in many ways. When we read the Bible, when we hear songs of praise, when we have conversations with friends and family, even when we go on a physical journey like the one that I did earlier on, Jesus continues to walk the path with us of life. And just like he does for those two followers, he reveals more of himself to us. My question is, how do you respond in light of Jesus doing that very thing? I think there's two ways we can do it. Firstly, we can continue on our path, not really having it impact us in any way, shape, or form, just living the way we want to live. Or secondly, just like the followers of Jesus do, we can turn and rush to Jesus, to go and tell others the good news. Tell others what Jesus has done personally for you, but also for everyone throughout the world. I hope here as a family of believers, we choose the latter also. We choose to turn to Jesus and to encourage one another in our walks with him. So let me encourage you to go and to tell, to go through your life knowing that Jesus is by your very side and to seek to encourage all people, ranging from those that may know him a little to those that may know him a lot, to draw closer to him through encouraging them with your story, as we've all been impacted by Jesus, just as the believers did, rushing back to tell others of their journey with Jesus. Hopefully, my thoughts today have been an encouragement and a blessing to you, and a reminder to go and to tell, to go towards Jesus with all your life and to tell all others, Christian or non-believers, everything that Jesus has done for you, to encourage them and to help them see more of Jesus. God bless.